December 7th, 4 p.m. meeting of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I have 9 members present so far, and before we get going, I do believe, we're at 10. Hello, Mr. Vice Chair. I do believe we had a special request from Mr. Honeysucker to give us a quick update on operations regarding solid waste and what's developing there. So, Mr. Honeysucker, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. And as I shared with the council, we under the leadership of Director Potter, we want to definitely make sure that we're transparent with the council each and every week. That is our commitment to update you on the status of our operational readiness. And again, with Ms. Hunter here, General Services is doing everything they can to try to assist us in getting our fleet up to where it needs to be. But just so you'll know, the operational readiness is what I'll be updating you on each and every council meeting. Even from yesterday, we did have a slight change in our operational fleet. Front loaders, I shared with you, we have 10 assigned. We're at 10% operational readiness with our front loaders. Our rear loaders, we had about 33%. Our side loaders, we had 1 go down today, actually 2. So we had 44% on our side loaders, and again 45% at our roll-off operational readiness. So that's actually real time what's going on with our fleet right now. We are working diligently with General Services to try to get that fixed and up to speed. They are doing the best they can, and our vendors, it's really the hold up, I think, and Ms. Hunter can attest to this, at our vendors right now, that we have a lot of our fleet sitting on their lot waiting on them to service the equipment, which is causing a considerable delay in us getting up to speed where we are right now. And also, you all received an email from me a little while ago in regards to the status of Red River. They are behind. This is Tuesday. Our level of confidence in them finishing by Friday is very low, and we want to be with all transparency with that, hoping that they will catch up by Saturday. We have put it in place. I have talked to Mr. Potter to get approval. I am looking at an emergency backup to move a lot faster than we had anticipated on taking routes from this company and getting them with a company that is solid enough to perform the duties that we need, so we will not have any break in our service. I hope any questions that you all may have.
What do you think a timeline would be on getting an emergency contract in place to pick up where Red River's not able to keep things going?
I appreciate it. I have Ms. Sharon Smith here who is helping me. So Sharon can kind of step in and help me on answering that.
So we do have a solicitation out for Councilor Gamble's area that also includes emergency, but what we're talking about right now is sort of, emergency. I did speak with one of the other companies today. I'd like to see if they could take on at least 4 routes. 4 automated routes. Red River's doing pretty good with their rear loader routes. It's mostly the automated routes they're having trouble with. And I am waiting to hear back from them, but it's likely going to take them a few weeks to get equipment here.
Sure.
As we've talked about in the past, these folks don't just have a bunch of equipment sitting around. So we're looking at all types of options, even servicing routes with rear loaders, which is slower, but still would help to kind of get things moving along.
I guess what's the breaking point, so to speak, or what's going to determine when we need to start picking up routes?
Well, and if you're asking me personally, I'm already at the breaking point where we're at now. I have consulted with Director Potter on this. If you'd like to speak on it, it'd be fine. We're at a point right now where we have to move. We cannot allow ourselves to become even more vulnerable than we already are. We have to move now.
And if I may just add, Monday's the lightest day. If we can't get everything picked up on Monday, every day after Monday just gets heavier and heavier. So I completely agree with John.
With our fleet, have we been able to get enough rental equipment in to keep it, maintain our own routes that we service ourselves?
We are managing with what we've been allowed to in regards to the rentals that we have and the contracted rentals that we have, we are able to maintain status quo with our services here within Metro.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Nash?
Define automated routes versus rear loading.
Sharon, go ahead.
So the automated routes are where we pick it up at the curb. They're the trucks with the arm that empties it. There's one guy in there, they can hit 900 homes a day. The rear loader, you've got two guys there in the alley, somebody on the back. You're looking at more like 400 or 500 a day.
Anyone else?
Chair, I guess
Sure.
my question is, I appreciate the updates and, we've had a lot in committee about Red River and where that contract was and that performance and the bankruptcy and, so sequentially, I think we're kind of moving along and communicating well, but at what juncture or are we in the midst with yourself and Director Potter and Ms. Smith? As we add new things in and we're talking about, adding these vehicles to our fleet and, I think sometimes citizens don't know, we do recycling ourselves with our own vehicles and staff. We contract trash. We have some aspects. Are we, having an emergency contract, I completely understand that, but are we starting to kind of facilitate the conversation of, should we do this differently? Because I think the assertion has always been that in working with contractors, we are thus more nimble, right? But we've shown, and I know it's maybe particular to this contractor, we haven't been more nimble because of all their issues. So I think it kind of affords us an opportunity, and I think I'm hearing from my constituency, why do we do it this way? And would this be a good time for a reset, so to speak?
We do it this way because the contract goes to 2024.
Okay.
Sharon right now is engaging a engineering company to identify the best way to move forward. So we're going to survey cities all over the United States, find out best practices, and we're going to try to emulate that. But right now, we have no idea what is going to be the result of that study, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and predict. But generally speaking, it's going to be a combination of Metro and a variety of contractors. We're not going to put ourselves in eggs in one basket in the future.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And how well do the current plans see themselves meshing as we go forward with the zero waste master plan, where frankly we end up
That's way out
privatizing
there.
our-
We're just trying to pick up the trash right now.
Okay.
We're not going to try to get fancy.
Anyone else? Thanks, y'all. Appreciate that. There's a couple items I think we can dispense of with a consent, actually 3. That's resolution 2021-1270, BL 2021-1019, and BL 2021-1020. Any objection to hearing those together on consent? None. We'll read the captions. I'll flip my page. RS 2021-1270 Sledge, Withers, and Young amends ordinance number BL 2021-704 to authorize the Metro government to abandon additional combination sewer main and easements and to accept additional combination sewer main, combination sewer manholes and easements for property located at 622 Merritt Avenue, also known as the Finery Residential, the Finery, I suppose it's fine. BL 2021-1019 Toombs, Withers, and Young abandons existing sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes and to accept new sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes for 2 properties located at 2982 and 3010 Brick Church Pike. And BL 2021-1020 Sledge, Withers, and Young abandons existing sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 1201 Hillside Avenue, also known as the Reservoir, Zone 4A. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Now, that brings us to, all 12 of us are here. I think that's a first, maybe. Congratulations, everyone. All right, that brings us back to Resolution 2021-1236, Young, O'Connell, Allen, Henderson, Benedict, and Porterfield. recommends implementation of certain transportation system safety policies and furthers of Vision Zero. Can I get a motion? And then we can hear thank you. And we'll go to Councilwoman Henderson for a proposed substitute.
Thank you, Chair Young. I appreciate the time that this friendly amendment/substitute was afforded. Spoke with Ms. DeMassimo. I guess, Mr. Sewell, are you here representing NDOT? Councilman O'Connell and I are serving on the Vision Zero Task Force, as I think some other colleagues are, Ms. Hurt and others. And so, we've got some work in progress, and so, this being advanced at this time, kind of in the midst of that work, I think is fine and collaborative with that. But there were some things that I had some questions about, and so, reached out to procurement and finance, particular to quick build, trying to understand our current crosswalk policy, and then also wanting to make sure that with our current fatal crash investigation team, as it already exists, that we establish more formally some sort of referral process. And so just in outreach with staff, I was just wanting to make sure to do something collaborative, but that was a little more specific as to the deliverables from this resolution. And to that end, requesting a report back by March 1st of 2020 to council. And that is what is in this sub. So with that, I would request that somebody move it and request your support.
Second.
All right, Mr. Sewell, did you have anything to add to that, or
If there are
this
any
is
questions?
considered friendly by the administration?
Oh, no.
It is?
Yeah.
It is.
Yes.
I'm sorry. You used the wrong word.
Say no.
All right. Committee members, any discussions, questions, comments, riddles? All right. Those in favor of the substitute indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And any further discussion on the resolution as substituted? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
And Chair Young, if I may, because I was not the lead sponsor on this substitute by rule, it is not our new rule change where everybody gets signed back on in the same order. So I would invite the colleagues that were signed on. Once it becomes subbed, then it would just be my name on it, but I would invite our committee and everyone who was originally on it, please, to sign on in support of our Vision Zero efforts.
Excellent point, excellent point. Next, 2021-1252 by Hall. I do not see him present, and so we will.
I'll sign on to it.
All right.
Sign on as well.
Well,
I'm not sure where he is on this. I don't know if you want to move it forward or if he's.
I was going to recommend a one-meeting deferral.
Okay.
excellent. Okay. Let me go ahead and read the caption quickly. RS 2021-1252 by Hall encourages recycling efforts in Metro Nashville and Davidson County. Requests the Metro Department of Water and Sewage Services incentivize recycling efforts. We had a motion to defer in a second. Further discussion on the deferral. Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We defer one meeting, 12 in favor, 0 against. Resolution 2021-1263, Gamble Johnson and others appropriates $9,069,614 in American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund Number 30216 to general services to expand the vehicle fleet at the Metro Nashville Police Department, the Nashville Department of Transportation, and the Davidson County Sheriff's Office. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Thank you. And I think we'll go to general services. Wanting to speak on this? Finance? Anybody? Council office? The mayor's office?
It did get deferred in budget for one meeting. so-
Okay.
I make a motion, we defer this for one meeting.
Second.
All right. Further discussion?
Chair Young?
I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Henderson, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this being deferred because I think there were some questions in budget finance and some of which I share. I guess I'm hoping in the intervening time, particular to the deferral, that you can please address. I have some concerns about us moving so much of our fleet into SUVs. I worry somewhat that we're checking the hybrid box, right? And that's a good thing, but still gas mileage on an SUV comparative to a sedan police car. Also, there's pretty good research that an SUV is more dangerous for everybody external to that SUV. And so, when cars are in pursuit, what that means for the community. And so I would like to understand, for us as a body and a city to say, we're moving so much of our fleet into SUVs. I have some genuine concern about that. So I'm interested to know from General Services perspective, is that just because that's what Ford does now and that's what police wants and okay, we're just moving forward, or have we done any kind of collective assessment of the type of vehicles? So that's something I'd be, and I don't know, Chair, if you want those answered now or in the intervening time, I'd defer to you.
I will defer to General Services, but my guess would be they're probably not ready to speak on that, or?
And Chair, I would say the Budget Committee asked for questions be sent to Hannah, and the answers are posted on a common SharePoint that we can all see answers in. So if we
Okay, I
can
appreciate that.
specifically send that question to.
Sounds appropriate. Councilman Bradford?
This question may be answered by that SharePoint, but my main question was how this money is divided up. Is it being divided up equally among the departments, or is MNPD getting more of the allotment than Department of Transportation or Sheriff's Office? Because conversations I've had with Sheriff's Office is they have a lot of vehicles that are on their last leg, and they seem to get very little compared to the Fire Department and MNPD. So I'm just wanting to make sure if this money's being divided up equitably among all the departments, or if there's one department getting more than the rest.
Sounds like something, or
You want me to take that, General Services?
go for it.
Yeah. No, it is not equitably. It's based on the ARP requests from the various agencies, and these are actually additions, not replacements of older fleets. So they are additions, and the bulk is going to purchase police department vehicles, 128 police vehicles, 10 for NDOT, and 4 for the Sheriff's Office. So the money actually goes to General Services because we do the procurement.
Okay, just a quick follow-up, I'm sorry. Is there any work with General Services to ensure that our Sheriff's Office fleet is getting updated as needed?
Yeah, so there are, and I don't have that in front of me right now, but with the capital spending plan that was presented to Budget and Finance last night, there are, let me tell you how many are in Sheriff, if I can remember. There are vehicles, I don't have that number in front of me, but there are vehicles in that capital spending plan, $10 million allocation for Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
So I apologize. So we're spending $10 million on vehicles in the capital spending plan, and this is another $9 million for $20 million of vehicle purchases total at this juncture.
Well, actually, even more than that, because there is a $15 million allocation for the fire department. It's carved out for fire department heavy equipment replacement.
Okay, so heavy equipment replacement, I guess I put in a different kind of mental
Well,
category.
that other $10 million in capital is also heavy equipment. This is not heavy. This ARP is light equipment, which would typically be 4%.
Right, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Gamble?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak as a representative and member of the ARP committee. When the departments came to speak to us and talk about the need for the vehicles, actually, this was not the first time. They came to us with the CARES Act funds, and because we had limited funds at that time and the focus was really on the emergency response and the community needs, we didn't address any of our departmental fleet needs. From what we've been told from the various departments, including MNPD, they have vehicles that are old, that are being used on a continuous basis because they don't have enough vehicles for all of the staff and officers. They have vehicles that are being used for all shifts, so the vehicles are not having any downtime, which is adding mileage and wear and tear on the vehicles. Detectives are driving their personal vehicles because they don't have vehicles to drive as well. So when the ARP committee looked at this, we thought that this would be an opportunity to address the fleet needs that we've had now for longer than 18 months because, as I said, this was brought to us in the first round of funding. And so this is a way to address it without having all of the burden on the tax dollars, on the 4% fund. It is something that we need. The type of vehicles wasn't really discussed, and I think something came up last night about the vehicles being used for a change in shifts that they're doing, the 4-day, 10-hour shifts. That was not discussed at the ARP meeting. The main purpose for the vehicles that we were addressed with about was the need to have vehicles because they don't have enough for officers. The vehicles that they have are worn down and torn up. In fact, I was at a community meeting a few weeks ago where the community engagement officer was there and we got ready to leave and he couldn't leave because he couldn't start the vehicle. It had to be jumped. And I thought at that time, this is the perfect poster picture for why we need more fleet. So for those reasons, we supported and made this recommendation, but I do support the deferral to get more information on the type of vehicles. I know in bigger cities in Chicago, that's what the officers drive. They drive SUVs. But getting more information on why that selection and then more information on the change of their shifts going to the 4 days, 10 hours as an explanation as to why they need these is new information that we can get information about as well. So thank you.
Councilman Nash.
Well, I would like to second some of the comments that have been made about the need for these vehicles. Both the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, 28 cars is not a lot of cars at the Police Department. And 4 at the Sheriff's Department is not a lot either, so I'm hoping the capital budget helps out. Back when I was in planning, and we're talking 20 years ago now, there was a desire on the part of, I know there's a question about labor, there was a real desire on the part of the majority of the police department to go to the 410 kind of shift. And we were never able to make it quite work because our statisticians, in analyzing the crime, they could never get the shifts to line up with where we had the problem with crime. Apparently, that has changed now, and it does provide for a lot more officers on the street over a couple of given times where you got to have cars to get it. And then I think the SUV is not the same SUV that Grandpa drove. I mean, they're really lowering them, making them safer. You don't have that rollover component. They're making them smaller. They take on all kinds of profiles now, so I don't think we should be too concerned about and these are the Ford version of the Interceptor, which is made for police work. So they've done a lot of work to make sure that that's suitable for the use. And I don't mind the deferral, but hopefully we can talk through some of that. The other question I had is there was some question about whether or not this should not be part of a capital budget kind of thing versus the American Rescue Plan. Maybe an ARP person can speak to that. Are we okay as far as getting things qualified?
Oh, yes. These do qualify under the guidelines of the ARP funding.
Very good.
And because we've got, I think, 1 or 2 more items that might generate a little more discussion, I guess if we have any more conversations, maybe focus on why this resolution is in this committee, which would be the NDOT fleet. And I don't want us to stray too far off of that, but is there any further discussion on this before we vote on it?
Good breakdown on cash and cars and what equipment's being bought would be nice.
Sure. All right. All those in favor of one meeting deferral?
Aye.
And those opposed? Next, Resolution RS 2021-1264, Johnson, Sullivan, and others appropriates $2,380,640 in ARP Act funds from Fund 30216 to General Services to temporarily expand the trash disposal fleet of Metro Water Services to ensure timely trash collection and avoid public health issues. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And Councilman O'Connell.
Yeah, I guess my question on this one is why are we taking the temporary approach? Why are we not expanding fleet on a permanent basis?
We're doing both. We've got capital requests in for purchase as well as this is the rentals to get us through this tough period.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything further from the department? Any further committee discussion? We have a motion to approve. All those in favor? Aye. And those opposed? All right, 12 in favor, 0 against. That brings us BL 2021-1011 by O'Connell amends Chapter 7.08 of the Metro Code of Laws pertaining to the sale of beer and beer permits.
So moved.
All right, and I believe Mr. O'Connell has a substitute to his own bill. So I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us what you want.
Thank you. I do want to move both the substitute as well as an amendment. They're each, I guess, Ms. Lightland, do we need to do the substitute and then move the amendment on that?
Right. Put on the substitute first, then put on the amendment.
Okay, so I would recommend the substitute, and I would, I know I think we've got the beer board here. Yes, Bethany is here. And we can discuss this, but basically this is something we've worked on with the beer board, Metro Legal, looking at a new permitting process that basically is a managed BYO approach, and this includes some technical updates recommended by the beer board, as well as a slight change, which is in the amendment, to change the way citations are applied based on sort of what we have seen on the ground since December 1st. So I encourage the committee to support both the substitute as well as the amendment. So we've got the substitute moved, so I guess let's get that approved, and then I'd move the amendment.
Councilwoman Allen?
I think this is a question on the substitute itself. Does this give the operator the authority to refuse to serve people who are intoxicated, similar to what a bartender would have?
Well, so I will let Mr. McDonough and Ms. Lightland potentially speak to this. The permit allows for them to enable patrons to bring the beer on. Now, they can have effectively a bartender for beer that has been purchased off of the vehicle. Presumably, they have the right to refuse to offer that, although it is a little bit complicated because they are not point of sale necessarily for that person, but I would invite additional analysis here.
Yeah, I would just argue that they would be responsible to make sure that they're not serving, even if it's BYO. I think they still would be responsible in that case to make sure that they're not serving someone who's obviously been overserved at that time. And that's something that's plainly set out in our rules and regulations as well. So
it's plainly set out for bartenders. It's not clear to me because you used the word "I think," so I'm still not sure that it's plainly spelled out for operators of the. And to me, part of the problem that we're trying to deal with is the excessiveness. And if all this does is now allow it to happen again without providing an adult in the room, then I have concerns about that. So can we tie that down at some point?
I'm happy to tie that down.
Okay.
But I would say that because the permit is actually created under our rules then, or under our ordinances, then they're responsible to follow all the rules and regulations that are in place that we follow.
Okay.
But I'm more than happy to make that clear if we can do that.
That'd be great.
So two things, Councilmember, I think that are critical to understand here. One, there was no rule or regulation at all previously. It was unregulated BYO. This means not only do they have to go to the beer board, pay an appropriate fee to get that permit, to Benton's point, they also then are subject to the rules and regulations of the beer board. So they now have a revocable permit that can be revoked for bad behavior, and that is governed by the rules and regulations of the beer board. So to me, this is a significant improvement in the landscape of where we were.
Great.
Do they, as far as age and underage drinking is, I guess we're not limiting those who get on one of these buses or vehicles to be 21 or up. Is that once again going to be the onus of the operator to ensure, just like being overserved, that there is not underage consumption as well?
Yeah.
And if I may, from a Transportation License Commission state, since we're tied and we've really had an interesting conversation between the Beer Board and Transportation Licensing. One of the things that we'll be looking at is, we're already looking at the ordinance that you've passed, we'll also be looking at what they've passed. whatever needs to be supplemented from, once they're on the vehicle, they belong to us. At that point, if there are things that the commission needs to be able to pass, I think the commission then would have to have public hearings and so forth, but we're going to be depending heavily on the beer board to advise the commission. But anything, the commission already has administrative rule. All of our operators, anybody that's licensed by the commission, must abide by all other metro, state, and federal laws. And if they do, then they're in violation of us. And that's in our administrative rules section. So I feel fairly confident that once we get rolling, if there are things we need to do, again, I'll have to depend on legal to advise us. But I'm pretty sure our rules, the commission will have rules to supplement what the beer board can't. And then I know they've got rules that'll supplement the things that we can't. So it's a real symbiotic relationship that is developing. In fact, I'm going to be moving in his office, and we're going to get
I know, I heard he was going to resign soon, too. When's that?
There was a shake-up, I've heard, but seriously, we're all taking this very seriously, and we're going to, if we go forward and the state gives us the authority, I really think we've got some good momentum and plans.
I totally agree with what Billy just said. I feel like this is something that, I think it's win-win for everyone. On the one hand, you have the industry, and they're going to be able to continue to operate, but also on the public safety side of it, you have regulations in place, which you didn't have before. And so I think moving forward, I think it'll be a good opportunity for the taxpayers.
In current enforcement is police officer, beer inspector, licensing, transportation license inspector. We're working as teams every night now, or as many, I don't have that many, but we're getting there.
Councilman Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. The follow-up on what you're talking about, because my question was about enforcement. You mentioned who will be doing the enforcement, but how will the enforcement be done? Is it going to be purely a complaint-based enforcement system, or will there be periodic checks? How is that going to work?
Well, clearly we have not gone into that yet, but what we anticipate is just as we did with the scooters, we based the fees on what it was going to cost us to operate. So we actually established the fees for the scooter companies to be able to hire someone, and we're in the process of trying to get someone hired that'll be specifically dealing with that. I anticipate the same sort of things. Again, the difference is there are some things that they'll have to be doing and things we'll be doing, so that'll be, because I can't enforce beer rules, but there are things that we can enforce that relate to their rules. So it will not be just complaint-based. There are some things we do that are complaint-based because it makes sense that way. In this particular case, we think we have to be much more active and aggressive to make sure that we maintain public safety, which is our primary role in this.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
And I may add, the police are doing a bang-up job. I came down Broadway today for some stupid reason, and there were count them, two of these vehicles pulled over by our law enforcement, getting tickets.
Carry on.
So well done.
Councilwoman Henderson.
To kind of follow on to Councilman Bradford's question, so kind of the practicality of the enforcement. So I think, we all understand if you go to a restaurant or something and you bring a bottle of wine and then they open it and they're serving you and so forth, but I think we know kind of sadly, historically, some people have come and engaged in this activity solely for the purpose to, get drunk and kind of shout at people on the street and so on and so forth. So I guess I wonder about the practicality of, oh, okay, well, now we can bring our own beer, and so we stop at this store and we stock up and we load all this stuff onto this, can you kind of speak to what BYOB means practically, and then sort of that transitional aspect of open container, public sidewalks, public right-of-way, like when you're done, if you don't use up all your beer, can you take it with you? Does that encourage people to go ahead and finish all up the stuff that they probably shouldn't be finishing? Like, can you kind of speak just to the practical aspects of bringing your own?
The language speaks pretty clearly to the fact that you can't just do point-to-point pickup, right? Like, it is approved operator locations that you can basically bring it from the trunk of your car onto the vehicle. So it anticipates that this is not a, hey, I'm going to jump off, run into a convenience store, come back on, and I'll let you speak to any more detail if you want about that.
Yeah,
And I've got a meeting this week with MNPD to discuss the real-world application of our rules and also of the ordinances that we're trying to get passed here, because we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with how we're doing the enforcement. And so that will be instrumental in really working to get common sense rules put in place that the Beer Board will adopt and put in place. And so really what we're doing right now is just creating the permit, and then once the Beer Board meets and passes the rules, then those will be the practical rules and regulations that we'll have in place and be able to hopefully enforce the way that you're, based on what you're requesting.
And I appreciate Councilman O'Connell's point. Completely not regulated, now the permit, and that permit is revocable, and thus that kind of helps self-enforce. But, I think we've seen, whether it's short-term rentals or otherwise, I think you all are going to have to be very specific and particular about what is leading to the revocation of a permit. I mean, is it one time, a gaggle yells at kids and that's it, you're done? Or is it like, there's a lot of kind of nuance in this a little bit, and I worry that people take advantage of that.
Mr. O'Connell?
So I can only say good things, and I know Mr. Taylor is here also as a member of the Beer Board in terms of where the board and their staff have been in terms of policy and its application within brick and mortar establishments. I mean, we see very, very little infringement because people understand the inspection process, et cetera. I mean, I would say I have confidence in this mechanic between the Beer Board and the TLC because we have generally seen success from the Beer Board in terms of preventing underage sales, preventing general infractions of those rules. So I think it's a model that already, to some extent, exists. I mean, obviously, it is now in a vehicle context, but I think the overall approach here is sound, and I think as with everything else, we'll watch this evolve, but I think this is a really good starting point.
Did you want to?
Yes. For those who don't, I'm Brian Taylor. I'm the chair of the Metro Beer Board. So I've worked very, very closely with the director as well as Mr. O'Connell, Councilman O'Connell, on this. And Councilman Henderson, to your point, we're all concerned about that. Based on Mr. O'Connell's comment earlier, we're going from a completely unregulated environment to not only one entity, but two entities, meaning TLC as well as the Beer Board. We will work very closely together, and that allows the MPD two different resources to police not just what they're doing physically on the street at that moment, but a potential to reduce, if not remove, any and all revenue on that particular vehicle altogether. And a perfect example is information just came out, I believe, today or yesterday. The number of vehicles running today is a fraction of what it was last week or the week prior when the regulation had not yet begun. We're not going to alleviate all illegalities. They do have a controlled substance on board. We're not going to be able to address in ordinances or rules everything that could go wrong. But I think with the communication, the cooperation that our two departments have on this matter, considering the public outcry of the Wild West has been named over the past couple of years, and its inability to get better, I think what you're going to see is a big change in the way they operate. You'll always have people that just don't care and just kind of let it get out of hand. But the idea between our two departments is to say to these folks, we're going to let you continue to do this. We're not here to deplete or delete an entire industry, but we're going to make it so that you understand it's gotten out of hand, and not only are you regulated by beer, now you have TLC that has to approve you first before you come to the beer board to get this permit. I feel great about it. We spend a lot of time discussing and talking about it, and even on the beer board, we talk about it all the time. In a perfect world, we don't have any violations ever. That doesn't happen. Look at the revenue generated by our department. I liken it to what happened during COVID as well. Same thing, that Billy just said. We require you to operate by every other metro code of law in order to have a beer permit. Period. The end. But thank you. Thank you for the time.
Councilman?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would also note to Councilmember Swope's point, I mean, we've already watched the landscape shift, right? I mean, there are changes in behavior among these operators, and I think, my goal with the original regulation was to work this down, to Mr. Taylor's point, to a tolerable place. And I think we between TLC, MNPD, and soon, I hope, the beer board, I think we will achieve the equilibrium here that is, I think, appropriate.
Now, all of this discussion has only been about beer, because that is what we are only allowed to regulate per the state. So is this in any way, can someone take a cooler full of Jell-O shots onto a vehicle? Or liquor.
To your point, this bill does not specifically regulate that, but the previous regulation, to my understanding, would still prohibit them from bringing full spirits on, right? Like you could, on these unenclosed vehicles specifically, right?
Yes, unenclosed,
The
correct.
previous regulation we did meant you can't go get vodka drunk on a pedal tavern and woo.
Darn.
Sorry. So sorry, Mr. Chair.
I was looking forward to doing that after our meeting tonight.
Well, yeah. Sorry. You can still do this on the drag bus.
Call the question.
Well, is there any further discussion? I think, all right, on the substitute, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Oh, actually, we're down to 10. And all right, Councilman O'Connell, you have an amendment.
Yes, the amendment is the citation, so I would move the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Those opposed? Back on the bill as substituted and as amended. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Unless anyone has any funny jokes or comments, we are adjourned.
We're all late to the meeting.
Great job, Mr. Chairman. It's always fun.